Okay, Jeremy.
All right. Actually, we're kind of need a moment. I just need to make sure Rudy is on the correct Zoom link. Let's just send that over. Okay, sent that over. And maybe while we're waiting for a moment for Rudolph Hammerly to join us, just wanted to mention too, for today, just the overall structure of the Cosmo Local presentations we're going to have. Two events or two portions of the afternoon event, and that will be first of all as soon as our morning sessions conclude at 12-ish noon. I'm supposing we're stretching clock time a little bit today, Pacific time, or 3 p.m. here in Eastern time. We're going to be having Sam Hinz talk about communal reverie, early gropings toward imaginal aperspectivity through interactive imagination. And then we're going to be talking about, I've just simply labeled it the unthinkable present. And that will just be open dialogue, a little bit like what we just did, conversational. There can be poetry sharing if we feel so called. And we will be exploring just some of the conference themes and impressions, integrations, and then also where to go from here, and how to plug in, how to engage with Gebser. So if you're kind of new, especially, I recommend that you join us for both of those sessions. And let's just see here. Is Rudy on the call? Not sure if you can see Lisa on your end. Okay, I don't see Rudolph quite yet. Do you want to take another question or two while I try to reach out to him?
Sure. Does anybody have a question for? Oh, it looks like Karen has another question. Go ahead, Karen.
Actually, this isn't so much a question as just an enthusiastic comment to the poem that Aaron just read to us. Let me just, I thank you, Aaron. Thank you for posting that link. I called it up. And let me just, there a couple of lines at the end, the last few lines that you read. Let me see. We can only hope that in the effortless form of greater release that now undulates upon us, all this human tribulation will become increasingly transparent and transfigure itself. Well, that's very deeply personally meaningful to me because, I mean, we are in this great transformation of era that Gebser envisioned. It's, I mean, we are in the thick of it now globally. We're in its paroxysms. And I noted, Aaron, that when you introduced this, you said he wrote it in 1945 and 46. Was that right?
Yes.
Yes, because, and that, I mean, it was that portion was particularly resonant to me because he lived through World War I. This, you know, he barely escaped from Spain with his life during the Franco Revolution, and then he lived through World War II. And just how much suffering can you experience in a human lifetime? And he wrote this poem just as World War II was ending. And it was a catastrophe in Europe. I mean, it's hard for those of us who were born after World War II to envision just the enormity of what these people went through. And that Gebser, coming through this, had a vision that somehow, and this is to me also a very deep mystical insight, that somehow all the suffering that we go through will transform and transmute into something transcendent that takes us, you know, that opens us to the origin. So hopeful. Anyway, I just wanted to share that I find it very meaningful that this poem was written in 45 and 46.
Right. Yeah, no, he wrote most of his important long form poems around the same time, like 1944, 45. Wow. And yeah, it is worth like bearing in mind, like you say, that this is the kind of fertile aftermath of all that destruction, out of which these flowers are blooming.
Yes, I just want to let us know Rudolph is here, so maybe we can transition to our panel, and we're going to be talking a bit more about the poetry and translation work as well. So we'll circle back to that as well. Okay, so Lisa, if you could just pin Rudy, myself, and Aaron, and then we'll get started here.
All right, welcome. This is the kind of the capstone of our conference here today, and I'm really glad to have all three of you. Welcome, especially Rudy. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing you at Gebser conferences before, but I know Jeremy has. Aaron, it's good to see you too. I guess you guys have a really you've got a plan, so I hand it over.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And first of all, let me just do a brief introduction. You've heard Aaron's intro. John had a very thorough and very good one, but I'll just mention that first of all, Aaron is former president of the U.S. Gebser Society, publisher at Rubito Press, Gebser translator, friend, and Rudolph Hammerly, for those who do not know, is, well, Cordelia was mentioning this earlier as well, but Rudolph Hammerly is the publisher of Novalis and the publisher of Gebser's collective works. He's the archivist for Gebser. He's the president of the Gebser Society in Switzerland, in Bern, Switzerland, and involved in various projects, most recently an annotated collected works of Gebser. It's a republishing of Gebser's works in German with annotations, Kronos Verlag, and you can find more on the homepage that we're going to be sharing. But first of all, let me just welcome you both. It's great to be here with you finally, talking about Gebser. Oh, Rudy, you gotta unmute. Let's see.
Now you hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
So Rudolph, Aaron, welcome. And it's an honor to have you both present, and Rudolph, particularly, it's an honor to have you here with us in this international context, bringing together Gebserians across the world, and obviously the legacy and the work that you've done, bringing Gebser into the present, is just invaluable. So first of all, thank you. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation, Jeremy.
And Aaron, you as well. Yeah, so we had a few themes we wanted to explore and unpack together today. First of all, can everybody see us okay in terms of video? Okay, good. Excellent. So I thought we might start off with Rudolph. And as this conference is a conference about origins and tracing our origins, we thought it was very appropriate maybe to begin to explore with Rudolph, with your connection to Gebser, and any kind of personal stories that you might want to share about how you came to discover Gebser's work, how you came to know him personally, and anything else you would like to share. So maybe we can begin there.
Okay. Yes, let's see. The person is important, as it is the work itself, and especially with Gebser in his main work, the ever-present origin. Towards the end, he's speaking about daily life, and that's one chapter, important one. And daily life, it's where it happens, and where integral consciousness is being embodied, and so the person is important. And so I understand that you're interested in hearing a little bit more about the person behind the work. Yes, I had the opportunity to meet him, and to meet him many times in his last 3-4 years of his life. That is not so much, but on the other hand, for me, it is much, and it is also the end of his life. So you see a little bit the result, where somebody is. Yes, I tell you a little bit about my memories of Gebser, if I may. Yes, I met him in my early 20s. I was a youngster, and he was already 60 and more. And so for me, I was seeing an old man. I was not alone. I was invited with a bunch of young people, all my age, and we were gathering in the house of Gebser, in his apartment, actually. And the book, the last book he published, The Invisible Origin, was just out, was just published. And so we had the opportunity to ask questions about this book, and also to say whatever interested us about his work. So I was part of this crowd, and interesting observation, interesting memory I think I want to share is when I came from the street, and with this life of a youngster in the late 60s, early 70s, with a foggy mind, with this complete upheaval, turmoil. I was in anxieties about life, ideals, and everything should be changed now and immediately. So when I came in this apartment, it felt like coming to an island. And this was an island of quietness, not heavy quietness. It was light and serene, and a festive atmosphere. You couldn't help to become calm and a little bit happy. This happened to me, and so I left behind all my worries and thoughts and so, and was part now of this circle, asking questions. And there is another thing I want to share, an puzzling experience I had. He was not explaining much. He was not lecturing. He was not, it seemed he had no message almost. And so when we asked the question, he would answer it with 3-4 sentences, a little bit more maybe, but he would not start with the keyword, now here comes my theory. No. So I was a little bit disappointed, I must say. And because I was a student and I expected to be lectured somehow. And when I asked the question, I had the feeling, did he really understand what I said? And that was strange, because he was saying something, was it coherent what he said? And then, that was a big thing, afterwards, and pretty soon, I became aware that he was not answering my question. He was answering me as a person. And this was a big experience, almost transforming experience I had, because I noticed, hi, he was seeing me. And as a young guy, you don't know who you are. Maybe later on, you don't know either, but you don't know who you are, and somebody sees you. And so this is an awakening moment. And you think, oh, something's going on here. And also in all other encounters I had with him, visits I had, he never talked much. That was strange, because I thought he has to say so much. In his work, I learned things, but there he was giving, when you were with you, he was telling you a story, yes, he was giving you hints, he was giving you this or that idea, just like that, an indication here or there. Then he was also talking about important things, unimportant things, the same way. This was also puzzling, without any big difference in the tone he was speaking about it. Now this is maybe one thing, one story, one aspect which was important for me. I could share, but I could also maybe add 2 more episodes if you like.
Please do.
Okay. Yes. In my at my very early wedding, I was 21 when I married. Very early wedding, Gebser was giving me Ursprung und Gegenwart, the ever-present origin, as a present. And he has given us this book to me and my wife. And I heard him saying, yes, the title, Ursprung und Gegenwart. This is already everything. So he said, origin and present, this is everything. So it was like a joke, because he was smiling, and this joke meant, if you understand the title, you don't have the need to read all the 800 pages and all the notes and so on. You are invited to read it, but if you got it. And then when I was reading the whole thing, in the end, he says, Ursprung ist Gegenwart, towards the end. And if you live out of that Ursprung, that origin is present, then of course you don't need 800 pages or more. You can read them, and it's fun. But yes, so this joke had a long time effect. It still comes to my mind, and I'm a little bit shocked about what he said, and I think it was great. So maybe the last thing I want to tell tonight, for me, it's evening. Yeah, I was there when Gebser was dying, and I was there every day. He was dying in between a week or so. He was already very ill with his lungs up, but you wouldn't notice it, because he was so cheerful and happy. So you didn't have a person in front of you who was suffering, but he was ill. And so he was dying, and he had a hard time breathing. He couldn't breathe normally. So he needed oxygen. And so my job was to bring bottles of oxygen every morning and exchange the old bottle and replace it, and so that he could breathe with the equipment he had. And he was lying there on the bed, and it was clear for him, I'm going to die. And so I was there every day, and we had a talk every time. Once he forgot completely time, and he was talking with me the whole morning. But the day before he died, he couldn't really speak anymore. And so he was giving me a slip of paper, a small slip of paper. And on this piece of paper was just written one word. And the word was gift. Gift, English und Deutsch. Gift means in German poison. And yes, and it's the same spelling, the same pronunciation. And so I was there with this slip of paper, and he looked at me with his intense look, and he was smiling, and he was checking whether I got it or not. And then, yes, it dawned on me that he was speaking about his dying, and that he told me somehow that, yes, his body was being poisoned by the illness. He was already quite yellow in his face. But that death, dying, was also a gift, something given for which he was grateful, and you could see that. And so when he saw that I understood, he turned smiling, he turned his face away. I was lying there in silence. And this is something that was really deep for me, this acceptance. And yes, so that's how it was. And you asked me already also how did I get this job about publishing his books. Yes, reason enough if you met him, but there was also Gebser's wife, who was giving, she was teaching meditation in Bern, and she was giving sessions of body work, and I was first knowing her and was introduced by her to I knew a little bit his books, but I didn't know him. So through her and with the collaboration with Gebser, we started this project of the Gesamtausgabe, collected work, and this came out one volume after the other, year by year. And she died, and I was continuing the thing until it was finished. So that's maybe enough for the moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There's so much there. Jeremy, do you mind if I
please,
comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so much I could say about that. But the first thing, I've seen that note in the Gesamtausgabe about the gift, and that amused me at the time because I didn't know the background to that story which you just told, which is actually quite fascinating. But in about 15 years ago, I took ayahuasca for the first time, and during my deep in the experience, there was a whole insight which was pivoting on the dual language pun of poison as gift. I was being bitten by mosquitoes at the time, and I'm like, I was sort of going, well, it's okay. All they want is some of my blood, and in return they give me some poison, and their poison is a gift. And in that moment, I realized that, yeah, the play, German gift means poison. But this crystallized a whole series of insights for me that I carry with me to this day, about everything that we take as a poison or a negativity is secretly a gift, it's secretly a medicine. And that's, very deep kind of alchemy, when you can transform the poisons that are given to you into medicines. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. It's incredibly personal for me. The other thing, just getting back to what you were talking about the daily life and the simplicity. I completely agree with you about Ursprung and Gegenwart being, if you understand that title, it says everything. And I think Gebser, in one of the last things he wrote, he said something to the effect of, in the end, everything is simple. And I do, more and more, Gebser is so complex, his writings, but I think more and more, if you actually understand what origin is, and if that can be present for you, that's all. That contains it all. That is the whole. And and like you said, Rudy, he says that at the end. But I think one of the first chapters, I think he begins by saying, origin is ever present, and it's all right there. So, and I think the idea of origin being present really gets to the idea of time and the achronon, and freedom, Zeitfreiheit, or freedom from time. That's the kind of key to making our origin, which we normally conceive as something in the past, and making it actually present.
Yeah, well said, Aaron. As well, for me, I've very much loved the first page of the translated ever-present origin, and I mention that all the time in conversation with folks as the imparting of the ever-present origin is right there on the first page. The whole book is right there. So I've had a similar experience, Rudolph, in a maybe fragmentary way of engaging with Gebser for the first time as a 21-year-old, reading Ever-Present Origin on the train that I borrowed from the library, the big hardcover translated edition by Noel Barstead. And just the sense that everything was here and it had an effect. It had an effect that I immediately was like, this book is imparting something that I can't articulate, and I have to stick with it. I have to stay here. I have to be present with this book and with this author, because he's talking about something. There's an efficacy in his imparting of integrality that is alive in those words. And so I've jokingly, but maybe not so much now, have mentioned to my students that it might be good to use ever-present origin as something like a koan, or a sort of spiritual mantra to just play with, that it's simple and everything really is there. Maybe we can use this moment to transition a little to Aaron's work. Now, Aaron is, as I mentioned, the publisher for Rubido Press, and within that there is the Gebser project. And so this is a long-term project of translating Gebser's works. And if you were listening to the last segment, you got a little taste of Aaron's translation of Gebser's poetry. But Aaron, if you'd like to speak a little bit to that project and anything else you would like to add and to weave in, that would be great.
Right. Well, I guess, the background for me was coming to Gebser as I came to Gebser because it personally grabbed me, and anything I do as a scholar is not separate from, my personal involvement and my own philosophical quest. So, and so I wanted to, I think it was 2003. I was doing my honors thesis at the time, and I used to visit this esoteric bookshop a friend of mine owned, and he was a very big Jungian. We would talk about Jung and all sorts of things all the time. And but he'd always bring, he'd always hand me new books. And one day he just handed me The Ever-Present Origin. And he said, Jung saw, he said, Jung was good. Jung was great, but Gebser saw over the hill. And I just cracked it open. And I think I was doing my honors thesis on magic and the imagination at the time. So I cracked it open and I just read what he said about magic. I cracked it open to the magic chapter and read where he's talking about the etymology of magic. And I'm like, all right, this is solid. I'm sold. And yeah, from there, I think the next year I started my PhD thesis, and I basically put Gebser, I put two figures at the center of it, Gebser and René Schwaller-de-Lubitsch, who was a French Hermetic philosopher, both who have a lot of similarities in dealing with consciousness. And anyway, but I started just engaging Gebser, I wanted to read Gebser in German. So I think that following year I went to Europe and literally dragged the collected works back with me. And so since then, that was maybe 2005, I've been kind of immersed in Gebser's German, off and on, not continually, but and yeah, I've done a lot of translating of bits and pieces here and there over time, and that's just grown to the point where once I founded Rubido Press, and when was that, 5 or 6 years ago, part of the impetus for that was the desire to bring some of Gebser's works out in German, and maybe all of them. And so the status of that project now is that, let's see, we've got Rilke in Spain fully translated. That's Gebser's first book on the poet Rilke. And that's the book where you see Gebser engaging poetry and Rilke as this breakthrough into another world, a new realm of consciousness is opening up through Rilke. That's kind of what Gebser saw. And and I've got a collection of his poems, one of which I read a section from earlier. Those long form poems that he wrote in the mid 1940s, I've translated most of those, plus some earlier poems. So I just want to put out a collection of his poetry, self-standing, because I think the poetic origins of Gebser are incredibly important. So anchoring him in Rilke and in his own poetic work, I think is really a really significant counterbalance to the very philosophical, dense, intellectual work which we know and love. And apart from those two projects, I've got, I do have a translation that's almost ready of The Transformation of the West, one of his earlier philosophical books. But more important than that is one of his later books, The Invisible Origin, which we're working on a translation of as well. And so those are in different stages of completion, but I think the Rilke book and the poetry collection will be coming out hopefully early next year. This year's been, they were meant to come out this year, but this year's just been insane. So, and the other thing I'm working on concurrently with all that is a kind of a biographical book. So I've got a long form article online which explores Gebser's life and work, and it's really just that piece grown, that wanted to, it was too long for an article anyway. I wanted to be more, so I've expanded that into a book, and that is pretty close too, and it still needs a little bit more research. And one of the things I'm hoping to do, I was hoping to do at the end of this year, but it might have to wait till early next year, is to come to go back to Europe and do some more archival research, and can really sort of drill down on some of the finer details of Gebser's life and work. And the stuff that Rudy just told us is gold. That is already that ties so many things together for me. So I'm really looking forward to that work, because for me, it's like what Rudy said about daily life. How do we live and embody integral consciousness? Like it's fine to have all this very cerebral theory, but how do you be it? And so I was always interested in Gebser as a living being. Like how did his life, how did these ideas come to him through his life? How did where did those ideas fit into his biography? Because that's now I sort of turn this back on myself, because my own work is part of my own philosophical and mystical quest. So I wanted to see how that looked for him, how that what that looked like. So for me, it's not strictly biographical. It's more getting at the whole being and how one can bring the integral into an embodied daily life.
Yes. Before I jump back to Rudolph, I wanted to highlight that, because if there is any takeaway from teaching Gebser over the past few years, it has been the experiential dimension of working with Gebser's writing, even in translation. And we can speak about this, Rudolph and Aaron, what shines through the translation, right? That there seems to be a sense of transparency, whether it's in German or if it's in English, that imparts something and is present there in the writing and is able to make that leap across language. Maybe, as you're speaking, Gebser's presence, his being, which is an invitation into this integral being and this integral embodiment. I guess my question, and we could jump to, maybe we'll go to Rudolph for this. How to exactly frame it. Rudolph, I was thinking of the anecdote you shared with us before we did our panel on Noel Barstad and his coming to translate Ever-Present Origin. I would love to hear, maybe if you'd like to share that with everyone, because it kind of speaks to this challenge and art of translation.
Okay, yes. It goes back to 75. 75, I was at the Gebser conference in Athens, Ohio. Really still a baby. And I was accompanying the widow of Gebser. Gebser died 73. And we met there August Mikonas, who was chairman of this conference, and also Barstadt and many more. And so I think there, in this year and there, started the idea of translating Ursprung und Gegenwart. But behind this is, this I have to mention, is also another figure who was not there in Athens, but who was expected to be there, couldn't come. This is Lama Govinda. And Lama Govinda had a deep friendship with Gebser. And I have read in the archives the letter exchange between the two. And there you see how much Lama Govinda wanted that Gebser's work will be published into English, because he knew from his own experience that the English world is vaster and more important than just to have this work in German. And he actually wanted also to bring Gebser himself to the States to lecture and be a professor and he had arranged everything for Dallas, actually, the university in Dallas, and this couldn't happen because, as I mentioned before, Gebser was already had poor health and couldn't go. But he pushed hard at Lama Govinda that this will be translated. There will be present in the English world. And so I was there when Bashad was starting this translation, and he was almost discouraged at the beginning because he thought, how can I translate? Bashad is fluent in German. He speaks without making mistakes, and very knowledgeable about German literature. So he knew the nuances and all the shades of Gebser's language, could perceive it, and now how can we translate it? So I give you an example, and this is the title again, Ursprung und Gegenwart. I was present when I was there, when Neustadt and Jo Gebser were discussing this title, and they were saying present, origin and present. This is maybe okay, literally, but that's not good, because present is not so encompassing, so vast, rich in meaning than Gegenwart, because Gegenwart is also, you might not be conscious as a German native speaker, but there is something in it that means entgegenwarten, that means waiting for something to come, being open for it. Being in an attentive way, open for things that want to show itself. And this is in this word Gegenwart too, not just, so they said maybe origin and presence. Is that better? Then came this title, The Ever-Present Origin. And I know now, because I've read all these letters, that Lama Govinda, already when Gebser was alive, suggested exactly this title. Although it's, I mean, Bashad did a wonderful job. He put his life energy in this translation for 2 years, I think, or more. But the title, I think, came from Lama Govinda. I think it's wonderful, this title, The Ever-Present Origin. And the last thing I want to say, and this I say also to encourage Aaron, who has this project of translating things out of his experience, inner experience of Gebser, and this is the good predisposition to do it. I want to quote a German poet for the time of Rilke, Hofmannsthal. He said, jedes Übersetzen ist ein Untersetzen. In short, and not really translated, every translation is a reduction. And this might be true, but the opposite is also true. I have the experience many times. I think the translation of text, I know in German, English or Spanish, it shows me something I didn't see, because translating means also bringing the meaning into another language. It's transferring it. I think translating is great. It's not a reduction. It can be a reduction. We all know that, because origin present wouldn't be so great, but it would be a reduction, yes. But the other thing is more important, that a translation can bring forth even the meaning of something even better. We need both, but it's not just a translation. And you are the best example in Jeremy, that you understood the nuances of Gebser through the translation and the language, the poetic language. You got it. I saw it in your book. And this means the translation could transport it, could transfer it. And I think also that Aaron Cheek is doing it, and that's great.
Yeah, I like that idea of transmission rather than translation, you know. I mean, I often think of the word hermeneus, which is the word we get hermeneutics from, but it's also related to the word Hermes, you know, the god of translation. And but it's just, yeah, it's you know, it's interpretation as much as translation, and but fundamentally transmission, you know. And as long as you're transmitting that essence, I think the other things should be flexible enough to be conduits for that transmission.
Yeah, I wanted to jump back to Rudolph for kind of our closing portion of our panel here, because Rudolph, when we were speaking about this panel, you shared with us a kind of distillation of your working with Gebser, right, into these 4 pillars. And I think that would be really nice to share with everyone before we conclude today.
Okay, gladly. Yes, I was just to prepare a little bit this panel. I was thinking, what is the essence? What is now and here the essence of Gebser after all these years reading Gebser? And yes, you said 4 pillars, and I start with the first. I think what you also show in your book very well, that primordial trust, that's the core of it. I think Gebser encourages us to trust the richness of life. And that is not always easy, to be in touch with the potential, with the origin, with what is the source of everything. This is Urvertrauen, or primordial trust. And the last thing Gebser was openly saying in a speech is about Urangst und Urvertrauen. That's the last thing. I mean, he has written poems, a short poem later on, but that was not yet published, I think, when he was still alive, but afterwards. But that was the last concern, that we understand this. What is Urvertrauen? And to be rooted in primordial trust, and to cultivate that, and to encourage people to develop this being in touch. And that's the first thing, and maybe the last one. But I go on. What I think is also crucial is this experience Gebser had when he was in his late 20s, and he writes about it, and he has talked about it in interviews, not many times, but it's there, that he had this experience of beyond space and time. And this was the beginning of his whole philosophical quest. He wanted to find out about this, what was very clear, and not so much in the words, but he said, I had to work 20 years after that to write my work, The Ever-Present Origin. So what is Zeitfreiheit? That comes out of this. What is it? What is, because if we follow the linear time, it's just death waiting for us. It's this Kafka story that the mouse who comes from the field into the house and into the room, and what does it find? The trap in the corner, and there in the corner doesn't go in the trap. The cat who tells the mouse, turn around and come here, I eat you, and the cat eats it. That's the horror story of great Kafka, and it shows that the linear dimension of time is leading you nowhere, just it leads into the destruction. But Zeitfreiheit is something else. We have to find out. So there maybe two other pillars. Yes, Gebser described the different structures of consciousness, and it's all about integration of these multidimensional reality. We are not one or two things. We are plenty. To find this, he described this richness in Ursprung und Gegenwart. And what is this? And Gebser made it clear, and this is also important, that it's almost not allowed to fall back or to give in, to go back to former forms of consciousness in a deficient way. A little bit of magic, a little bit of mythology, it leads to war and destruction, as we see. Mythology is a great thing in false politics. And no, we have to go forward. That means the essence of the mythical magic world we have to integrate in us. And that means something pulsating in us, some truth, which is not the rational truth. And the last one is Ich-Freiheit, the freedom of the self, or ego freedom. I think I have a quote from Jeremy Johnson in your book, Jeremy, Seeing Through the World. You said once, the gentle decentering of the mental is fantastic. The gentle decentering, that's exactly what we should do. Go away from this egocentric view, projecting everything into the world, complaining or thinking I'm the center of everything. No, we are not. Absolutely not. We have to see this, what you call, I think, not non-human turn, or yes, meaning that we are together with the stones, the rocks, the rivers, the animals, and other beings too, and our neighbors. And this is important, that we are talking now together is also something that shows this, that we can't do it alone, and going from one perspective, meaning my perspective, to do my things in the world. This is unhappiness. This means complete unhappiness. Yes, I think these are the four pillars: primordial trust, beyond space and time, integration of the different structures of consciousness, and going from the collective to the self, to the sich itself, decentering. Yes, this is what I wanted to say. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that and imparting that, Rudolph. I know we have to conclude in a semi-formal way our presentation. We do have Michael here, who is joining us from Folsom Prison. He only has a limited amount of time, but before we do that, let me just say, Aaron and Rudolph, this is wonderful. Let's please do this again. Let's please continue to have this conversation. I feel like we could probably speak another hour or two. So to be continued, and thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Lisa, John, Dave, feel free to transition, and Rudolph and Aaron too. Michael's only going to be able to be here till 5 minutes to the top of the hour. So as we move beyond that, if you want to stay, that portion of the time might be open to Mark.
Okay, I would like to stay for the poll.
Okay.
Well, that's marvelous. So I have to be masked now because I'm no longer by myself in this room. It is my pleasure to do the following. To first off, change the name here. So that his name appears, and to get out of the way, to introduce to you Michael Love, who is from Oakland, California, is a student in the TOPS program at California State University, Sacramento, and is currently incarcerated in Folsom State Prison. So I'm going to get out of the chair and let him sit down and read his poem to you. So you'll be looking right there.
Greetings. The title of this poem is Origins Unknown. Humanity's waste, caged in disgrace. A paradox of deficiencies, unworthy of grace. Origins unknown, through time and space I roam. Delusional conclusions, manifested alone. Perpetual state of darkness, seldom glimpses of light. A boundless soul, tormented every night. Humanity's waste, caged in disgrace. A paradox of deficiencies, internalized as truth. Grounded in quicksand, thus traversed my youth. A child devoid of values, where delusions began. Bound in the depths of my soul, consciousness devoid of origin. Humanity's waste, caged in disgrace. A paradox of deficiencies, enabling primitive thought, subsequent putrefaction of my heart. Who am I? What have I become? What could I have been if origins were known? Mutations of consciousness. I'm learning, yet know nothing. A quest for that which was hidden, censored, and forbidden. Empathy for the pain and suffering caused by my decisions. Within my origins, truth is found. For within my truth, I will rebound. Humanity's waste, recycled in place. May redemption be my saving grace. Origins known. Thank you very much.
I invite everybody to unmute and so Michael can hear us clapping.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Beautiful. Awesome.
So if I could make a request, if you have a question for Michael, could you start by identifying where in the world you're talking to him from?
Michael, want to take off your mask?
You can take off your mask.
You can go step away.
Go ahead, John.
Mr. Love.
Yes, sir.
My name is John Dotson. I'm very grateful to be with you. I also live with poetry. Thank you so much. Could you state where you were born? Could you tell us where you were born? I mean, that's a personal question.
I was born in Oakland, California.
You've lived your whole life in California?
No, sir. I was moved around as a child and eventually ended up in Sacramento, California.
I'm just thinking of the specifics of your origins as well as the way you have brought forth the larger sense of origins. And it's very powerful. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Michael, I'm Veronica. I'm in Washington, D.C. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart I coach prisoners, 3 of them, all over the country. And you people are going to help us change. I feel it. I know it. Thank you.
I thank you.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Hi, Michael. I'm Jesse, and I live in New York City. And I was very touched by your poem because it felt to me like you had a lived experience, that you were expressing a lived experience of Gebser's various states of consciousness, and actually put some things forth that in a way that I actually hadn't thought of or experienced Gebser's states. So it's less a question that I have for you, and just wanted to just express my appreciation for this work and for sharing this with us today. That was really quite moving and wonderful. Thank you.
I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Tom, do you want to unmute?
I just want to thank you, Michael. That was.
Where are you from? Where are you?
I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the land of enchantment, we like to call it sometimes. That was amazingly powerful. I'm fairly new. You probably have studied Gebser more than I have right now, but that was one of the most pure expressions I have heard of Gebser's ideas, and pure expression, but also extremely personal. And I just want to thank you. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Danny and Royce, why don't we go in that order?
Mr. Love, thank you. I'm outside of Seattle, so on the same Pacific coast. The other piece, it's not a question, but I just really feel how alive, you want to talk about ever present. It's like how alive every single concept that you were, moving around and speaking through. I'm sure it was there when you were writing it, but it's here right now. Every time, I felt like every time, because you were, some of the words were repeated, right? Or the phrases, but every single time it's like they were just on fire. So they're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Royce, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Love. I'm in New York City. I practice a style of psychotherapy that's often mentioned along with Gebser, Carl Jung. And you've given me a new way to conceptualize the unfortunate, almost ever-present emptiness. The consciousness devoid of origin has just seared my mind. And I want to thank you very much for that and what you've brought us today.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, Michael, I'm Lisa Moraski. I'm in Monterey, California, here with John. And we've got David sitting here out of camera. I'm curious what drew you to Gebser when he was presented.
I was in a class taking Communications 100A, and my professor, Dr. Zuckerman, had mentioned Gebser along with some of the content of the book. And the content in which he mentioned, it just drew me to it, to where I needed to look further. As you know, with a college class, there are some topics that are not expounded upon simply due to time. And at that time, we were taking our classes over Zoom. And so I left out of that class that day with a curiosity, and I needed to know more based on what was presented. And so I contacted my family, and at that time, we get a quarterly package every quarter. And I said, well, I would like not to have that package, and I would like to order this book. But the book was very difficult to find. And apparently we were able to get a reprint of the book and through Amazon. And we eventually found it, and it took a little while. And when I started reading the book, I knew immediately what possessed me to the book. And keep in mind that I'm still not finished. I finished reading the book maybe 4 times already. And now I go through specific sections as I'm drawn to them. And this will probably occur for the remainder of my life here on earth, because it is just that powerful.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Do you, I know your time is limited, do you or Dave have anything you'd like to share with us?
I would just like to share that I am extremely grateful. I would also like to share that you just do not give up on us. There are some people, and we've made some mistakes, but it is through programs like this where we're given a second chance, and we appreciate that. And we do not take that for granted. And we want to make this program proud and all of you proud. And I just thank you.
Adam, you want to unmute?
Hi, Mr. Love. Thank you so very much for the beautiful poetry. It's absolutely moving. I have a question for you. Because of your current situation and because of Gebser really focuses on the idea of time. And so I was wondering how Gebser's conception of time and his ideas around time have affected you, and being someone who is incarcerated and has a lot of time to think about time. It was just a question for you.
Well, actually, how it's affected me is that my concept of time is not what it once was, to where I was counting days, counting months, counting years. Now it's almost as if I was locked away yesterday. The time is really not of importance to me anymore. What is important is what I do with the time. And so it has actually freed me in a way. It has allowed me to see perspectives that I did not see before.
Fantastic.
Hi, Michael. It's an honor to meet you, and I'm so happy that you are here and present with us. I just wanted to, I'm from St. Pete, Florida, by the way. Just wanted to acknowledge my gratitude for you and my fellowship with you in being a fellow Gebserian and exploring this, and especially what you just shared about this freedom from time that Gebser imparts in his writing, right? That we can be fulfilled by time, or we can fulfill time. And I think you're speaking to that right now. So grateful for you.
Thank you.
So as we say goodbye to Mr. Love, I think we're well met. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I thank all of you.
And thank you, Dave, for making this happen. It was very special for all of us to have Mr. Love be present with us and speak his poem, his truth.
Well, I could not have made this possible without the principal, Mr. Spencer, who really pulled some strings with the prison system to allow this, because this was very, very irregular. So Mr. Spencer is standing here, but he's not going to step in the spotlight. But I thank Mr. Spencer, and I thank Mr. Love.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear, he just said you're welcome. So. All right, I turn the table back to you, Lisa.
And I turn it back to Jeremy. Do you guys have any closing? Yeah, we'll come back to Casey, but I just want to make sure that Jeremy and Aaron and Rudolph have said everything they needed to say.
Thank you, Lisa. Rudolph, Aaron, any reflections or you wanted to bring anything in here, and you're more than welcome to.
Well, just in light of Mr. Love, we're constantly talking about different kinds of freedom with Gebser, time freedom, ego freedom, freedom from space. But, to really see someone who is incarcerated and opening up in freedom, it's a kind of freedom that can't be taken away. Like the freedom that Origin imparts is free from time and space, and I'm thinking of certain people who had, grand and mystical experiences of liberation while in prison. You know what I mean? Or people who wrote like major work, I think Aurobindo wrote some of his writings while in prison. Like people who find this wellspring of origin and creativity, like rising up, even when their physical circumstances are like literally inhibiting them. And I think that's really profound, because even if we step outside of an explicit incarceration, we look at our world and all we see are the increasing restrictions and obstacles, to our existence. And but to find that liberating nature of origin in the midst of restriction, incarceration, that is again, it's coming back to this idea of like, this is the gift that's it's hidden in the poison. How do we take this thing that wants to restrict or even kill us and turn that into liberating medicine? To me, that's again the true alchemy.
Thanks, Dave. Rudolph, any reflections or comments, and we can link it back as well to our panel.
Yes, maybe about the poem and the poetic. It was a very powerful poem. I mean, really, it was. And so I think poetry is at the end of this conference. I saw on the schedule, on the program, and I think the poetic is also named by Gebser as something that is already given us access to a new kind of consciousness. So it's not necessarily a poem. It's more a stance of perceiving the world in a poetic way. And Aaron, you also tried to translate, or you did translate Das Wintergedicht, and maybe you read us this wonderful line about the stars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
For the ending of our panel, and I think the poetic, as this poem we heard already did, the poetic is transcending the superficial perception of the world. It's going somewhere else. It's discovering meaning. And so please, Aaron, read us out of the Wintergedicht these lines about the stars.
Yes, okay. Here's the passage. Take it as a likeness of that final light which appeared last night upon the highest mountainside. Who even wanted to distinguish? Was it the earth's last distant lamplight, or was it the first star? The shining winter sky is close enough to touch, and you too are this sky. There's no reason to distinguish, for all the stars flow through your veins. There's no need to hearken anymore to the echo of ancient myths. For once the angels nested deep inside our heart, and in their own way brushed the hair from our brows, and the dream of moon and earth melted away, since we knew heaven once and for all.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Rudolph. A fitting, appropriate way to conclude our conversation together today, and a fitting interjection with Michael Love, bringing poetry, weaving poetry into this for us as well. I suppose we should conclude, and I just want to mention after Kesia, there will be a Cosmo Local portion, and that will be on a separate Zoom link, and I'll post it here in the chat. We'll be joining Sam Hinds to talk about communal reverie, and I strongly recommend you join us for that portion at the conclusion of this. So, all right, John, Lisa, do you want to?
You have your paper?
Right. Okay. I'll introduce Kesia, and if you need to share your screen, you can do that. Kesia was born in Minas Gerais, Brazil, and has resided in California since 2015. She incorporates the healing process of weaving life and art to integrate the original consciousness and ever-present origin through art. From the memory body to the cosmic body, Kesia recognizes herself as an artist, alchemist, student of cosmovisions, channeling consciousness and embodying planetary mutations and transitions. She points to the process as the key to access perception and co-creation of life as a masterpiece. Arriving in California, she started the project Art Cura Lab, with laboratories in her home dedicated to investigating house inhabiting rites and routines, and the body as a container for experiences concerning space and practices of relating. She created installations for total immersion and multidisciplinary collaborations. Her 8 Rites of Initiation series presents her alchemical journey in continuity with the processes of individuation and recognition of transpersonal beingness. Guided by intuitive vision, she creates and experiences dissolution and crystallization as a creative exercise. Kesia, welcome. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank you for the introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm very emotional right now with Mr. Love. And it was unexpected to me to come after this subject to be part of the conference, because I myself, I have a very intense, direct experience with prison through my parents, which guided me to pursue and learn who I am and why I'm here for. And with my experience with my parents, the only way I could communicate with them was through letters. And in the letters, I need to find a way to communicate to them what I found that was very useful and helpful in order to create life with light. And that was the hope I needed to translate to them through the letters. So I'm very emotional just listening to Mr. Love and to Dave's project. I wasn't expected that, but it got me to a space of presence with my own self and challenges. And it gave me hope to hear how the integration and embodiment of consciousness is happening even through prison facility and everywhere. So it affirms my belief in arts with this poetry and seeing, and my vision on this collective initiation we are part of. So I'm going to share with you a short 4 minutes video, which is an introduction. It's an unfinished, it's still in process. So I apologize for language that is not totally concluded. But basically it's presenting a call for a collective initiation and embodiment. And I call everyone and I offer support for groups and individuals to go through a process using the technique of SCORE that I learned from Anna Halprin, which happily I came across when I moved here, and from my own process of self-initiation started in 2012. Moving here, it was kind of a thread that led me to her, and she invited me to be part of her lab. Anna passed to the new realms of existence in May 24th, 2021, this year, at 100 years old. So she left me this gift of scoring, and rites of initiation is the core of my process. So I invite anyone who is interested to be part or join one of the groups or make your own group. I know here is a very nested group, which I love. I am here to support in whatever way I can. The goals of this process, if it's a goal, is just to have a time and space where we can experience the ever-present origin, and in pure awareness. As we move in integrity with this awareness, we connect with the layers of reality as it is, in time as it is. And we embody the presence as we realize we are co-creating this experience reality. So I'm going to share with you, not extending too much. Hope you enjoy. Can you see my video?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Are you hearing the voice?
No.
No, we're not.
Okay, maybe I need to share.
Yeah, when you share screen, you have to Well, actually, you'll have to stop share and then go back in. Okay, and in the lower left-hand corner, there are two little boxes you have to check. One says something about sound, and the other one says optimize video or something.
Video, yeah. One is computer audio, right? Computer
Yes.
audio. And then I'm gonna share. Let's see if it's going to work now.
Also optimize, there are two boxes to click on the lower left-hand.
Optimize.
Yeah, yes.
On the lower?
Yes.
Where is it? Let's see, just a sec. Lower left.
When you click on share screen and that white screen comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, very bottom left corner.
Optimize. Okay, great. Okay,
yes.
I got it.
Okay.
Perfect. Can you see the video?
Yes.
Cool. And then you let me know if you're hearing it.
And individuals, people, the self can be born from those spaces in between the liminal, the subliminal, the ethereal. A liminal stage is a period of transition which permeates individual, collective, and social transitions. Individual and social hierarchies may be dissolved or liquefied. Individual or group's identity are questioned, softened, and dissolved. Future outcomes taken for granted are thrown into doubt. The axial age is an intersection between two ages. It's a liminal period when old certainties had lost their validity and new ones aren't ready to emerge. During the axial age, a new spiritual foundation of humanity and other species are laid simultaneously, a crossing edge, a leap where every species needs to adapt to a new ways of seeing and being in relationship with the world. The great leap of being. An opportunity of spiritual awakening, a shift of perception from individual, society, and environmental values. An age of collective grief and enlightenment. Reuniting parts, remembering things forgotten. The challenges we face today: global warming, oceans rising, glacial melting, big fires, animal mass extinction, the plague, the famine, politic polarization, depression, economical collapse, isolation. In this process of change, new forms of being are emerging. Death, rebirth, adaptation. How can we see 2020 as a pivotal time in the axial age of the rising of new consciousness? How it is manifested for us as individuals, collectives, and environment. I request a rite of initiation, a rite of passage for an axial age, to leave the liminal and create the post-liminal age. Can art and performance be a space of transformation, of consciousness, a threshold? Is pandemic and quarantine a liminal threshold? Where are we going after that? Who are you? How to shed the old skin of identity?
Thank you for watching. I just want to bring the last commentary about the, oh, okay. Did I stop sharing my videos? Is that stop? Yeah, okay, sorry. So I just want to give the last commentary about the axial age. It's a term that I borrowing from the German philosopher Karl Jasper. I'm just using that term. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach out and connect, I'll be happy to connect with you.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I do think we have lost the art of initiation in Western culture, and it bringing it back would be very good. So keep up what you're doing. Jeremy, would you like to handle the transition to your other local event?
Sure, Lisa, and thank you, Casey. That was wonderful. I have more thoughts, but I'm going to send you a note, an email following up with you. And if you are interested, please do share your contact information. Some folks are asking in the chat how to connect with you. Okay, so in just a couple of minutes, now I'm going to be opening up the Cosmo Loco portion, the afternoon session, the afternoon tapes, technically hosted here in St. Petersburg, Florida, or at least from my room on Zoom. And that link is right here in the chat. And you can just join us.
Go to that one or not?
Yes, feel free to just join in there as soon as I pop out of here, and we'll probably take about a $5 as we're streaming in, getting settled in, maybe doing a quick bio break, and then Sam will be presenting for us on Sam, we'll save it for then, but it's called Communal Reverie: Early Gropings Toward Imaginal Aperspectivity Through Interactive Imagination. And then we're going to conclude with an open discussion on the unthinkable present, and just open invitation for anybody who wants to come join and chat about the conference. It's been really, really fantastic. So thank you all, and hope to see you there.
If anyone wants to just stay where you are, anybody that wishes just to hang out here where we are, we'll hang out.
Jeremy, are you going to be recording yours?
I think he's already gone.
Oh, okay.
I just want to say thank you, John and Lisa. Thank you so much. This was